Board of Selectmen on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. The only item on our agenda this evening is a continuation of our public hearing on the draft plan of the Conservation and Development. Just want to clarify the purpose of this meeting, how the comments are to be used. The Board of Selectmen, we received the draft of the POCD on July 7th. The POCD legal process dictates that the board has 65 days from that date to review the document and submit any comments, recommendations that they might have with regard to the POCD. And although we're not required to hold a public meeting, we opted that we would hold a public meeting, which was initially held in August, to gather input from residents that hopefully will help us in terms of our input to the TPZ with regard to the POCD. And but in an effort to accommodate as many of our residents as possible, we continued the meeting, the public hearing to tonight, which is what this is about. And it's important to understand that we as a board are obligated to provide our comments to the TPZ by September 10th, which is our next full board meeting, at which point in time we'll be considering it and putting together a document. It is also important to understand this is not the public's only opportunity to input on the POCD. The POCD is currently, the draft POCD that we had a copy of is on our website, and the public is open to comment and provide input in regards to on our website, via the website, to our TPZ and to the consultant who's working on the draft. So additionally, there will be, and you can provide that until such time as the TPZ holds their public hearing on the POCD, and there will be that public hearing as well, which will give the public another opportunity to comment or input as relates to the POCD. We'll try to hold the comments today. We don't see a lot of folks here, but we'll try to hold the comments to 3 or 4 minutes if you could. Obviously, we ask that you try to be respectful and relevant and constructive in terms of your comments. And that way we can we're looking just to have a collaborative and positive type of dialogue, so we understand what you're looking for, the public is looking for, and we can use that input as we move forward. So with that, I will open the continuance of our public hearing and ask if there is anyone who would like to speak at the public hearing.
Giglietti, 14 Brightwood Drive. Do I have to sign in?
You don't. I'll transfer it. Well, don't worry. I know where to find you then.
To be honest, I wasn't even planning to come tonight. I didn't come to the last POCD meeting, but I got a phone call from a friend of mine and said, "Why weren't you there?" I said, "Really, I don't really have much to say. Anything to do with the TPZ, I don't have much to say. I have no faith in them. And after last night, I still don't have any faith in them." But I said, you know what? There's a few things I do want to say after last night, and that's why I'm here. As I've said, the COPD, whatever it's called, POCD. I'll defer to the people who spoke at the first meeting, mainly Martha German, Kathy Wick, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Michael Broderick. I don't want to tell you how many times I was on that side of the table. And for all the years I was on the Board of Finance, he tortured me. But now I'm finding, and I agree with everything he said, but I agree with a lot that he said. The CPOD, from what I'm being told, whatever it is, you know.
I called it COPD.
POCD, I don't know, I've got it written down here, so I'll pick it off. The POCD has been referred to as the POD, because conservation is not mentioned in there. I didn't read it. I read a couple of sections of it, but clearly it's a developmental document. It's all about housing and more housing and more housing. And it's not, I don't believe, as I think Martha German put it more succinctly than I can, it doesn't relay what the people in this town think. It certainly doesn't. They don't want all this development. As I've said before, the TPZ clearly represents the developer. There's no doubt in my mind. Last night was a perfect example of that. For those of you who weren't there, they came out, and the developer's attorney had documents, but they canceled them, and he didn't get notice in time, and so he wanted the meeting canceled. Dozens of people there to speak, and he wanted the meeting canceled. And were it not for the fact that the land trust's attorney was there, it would have been, because I could tell by the body language on that group, they would have gladly canceled it. Two people spoke, and I could tell they were, but luckily, a couple spoke, and eventually, after about 40 minutes of discussion, the chairman said, we're going to have public comment. And they did. But again, it would have been canceled were it not for the fact that the land trust brought an attorney. The developer's attorney runs all the shots. You can see it every time he's down there. They look at him and they have stars in their eyes. Last night they brought some new drawings. They have some new drawings. I don't know if they brought them, but I saw them online. And the prison, as I call it, it doesn't look as much like a prison as it did. It's the building now is the length of a football field. It's humongous. It's massive. I don't know how wide it is, but it's as long as a football field. It's huge. Of the people who spoke, 99%, that's a rough number, but 99% were opposed to it. But something happened that I found very, very enlightening. Ellen Skalatar got up and spoke. And that's the first time I've seen probably a member of the Democratic Town Committee get up, and she spoke very quietly, very slowly. I didn't understand everything she said. I didn't understand the points she was getting across. But I believe, if anybody here disagrees with me, I believe she's in favor of it. She's in favor of this massive building, which doesn't surprise me, because I've known this all along. I come here and I tease you guys about, I don't know, I know everything. I've talked to so many people, I know everything that's going on. And if Ellen Skalatar, the chairman of the Democratic Town Committee, is in favor of this project.
Matt, before you go
Yeah.
on, if I might just stop you for a
Yeah.
second. I'm not sure that's what she said. I didn't hear her comments because I had to leave just before then, but I heard what she was planning to say. So if you're certain on this, please say that you're certain on this. If you're not certain
I'm
on
certain that
this,
she didn't say it's not a good idea. She suggested some minor changes. Again, I had trouble hearing everything she said. I don't know, anybody else get a feel? You were there. Did you get a feeling she was?
but this is your opinion,
It's my
is what
opinion.
I'm saying.
Right,
It's
it's my
your
opinion. If
opinion,
I'm
it's
wrong,
not
I'll
because,
stand corrected.
So-
But I did not get the feeling she's opposed to this. And again, if she's in favor of it, and the Democratic Town Committee's in favor of it, Mika, I believe you're in favor of it.
I can't make a comment on that.
I know you
Matt.
can't.
If you-
And again,
if you- I can't
I'll
make
be
a comment on
happy.
that.
I've been asking for weeks and weeks for someone to come in and say, no, I'm not in favor, or I am in favor, here's why. Haven't done it. After I'm through, if you want to make a statement, I'll stand corrected. Whoever is in support of this thing, obviously it's moving forward at a rapid pace. Someone's in support of it, and someone is driving this bus to get it passed. Again, if you're not, and the Democratic Party is not, why not say that? Because an awful lot of people have been saying that who's in favor of this thing. Why
It's
isn't
not
it?
a matter of anybody being in favor of it.
Yeah.
It's more a matter of somebody applied
Yeah.
for a permit or permission from the town
Yeah.
to put a structure on their private property.
Right.
And then we're going through the process of identifying whether that should be allowed by our regulations and allowed in terms of safety, environmental, and otherwise. That's what's occurring. So
after
there
they
doesn't
put
have
this-
to be in favor of or in opposed of.
And after they put this
It's
in,
a process.
we changed the zoning laws to accommodate them. So that tells me something. They put this came first, this plan to build this structure. And then came that fateful night of December 2nd, when the town planning and zoning held that ridiculous meeting where nobody was there except Mika. He was the only citizen who was there. And obviously you weren't there to watch it go down in flames, Mika. You were there to make sure it passed.
No, Matt, I wasn't.
You weren't.
Just so you're clear.
Okay.
Since I'm here and you're
Okay.
directing it toward me, I was not. I
no.
did not know they were going to take a vote.
Can I just ask a point of order? This is comment on POCD. We don't have other items on our agenda, so I wonder if we can
All right.
That's a
direct
great
to
point. Thank you.
POCD.
Okay, then I'll
Thank you,
move
Sheila.
right on
Appreciate
to
it.
I'll move right on to a little bit I know of this COPD. I read a section where they talk about expanding the water and sewer lines. I don't know, again, if I'm crazy, tell me. I'm sure I read that part of POCD, COPD, whatever it is, POCD. It was to expand the water and sewer lines. Now, what does that tell you? What does that tell you? I mean, we have got a zoning law now which allows 4-story buildings throughout the residential zone, which means that if we expanded sewer and water lines down Beecher Road, you could apply for and get a 30, 40 unit apartment if you can hook up to the water. So why then if this isn't true, none of this is true, why are we talking about expanding the water and sewer lines?
It was in the previous POCD as well.
Yeah, okay, well, it's wrong.
It has been in the POCD before.
And it's wrong. If we're gonna try and keep this town under control, it shouldn't be.
Well, just in the interest of the POCD discussion, there is also sewer and water down in our business district that if it could be, for example, expanded within the business district to bring in more commercial properties, that would be an appropriate and useful and productive reason to bring sewer and water, and that's something that would certainly help the town in terms of our commercial base.
That's fine.
So,
But it also can affect Beecher Road, Center Road. I mean, people are deeply concerned about this, so. All right, with all that, I'll finish my remarks. I mean, I think, I hope that that's not real, that you're not looking to expand the city water and sewer into the residential zones, although it's clearly, the residential zones are up for grabs now. And that's because of the ridiculous passage of that ridiculous change to our zoning laws. I wish somebody would explain that to me, why they did that, and why when they had the opportunity to go back and undo it, they didn't. They voted against it. Despite all the people who were there that night complaining about, go back and let's just stop with this one development. I'm going to say another quick story. I have a client who owns 811 Fountain Street, okay? His name is Joe Marcucci. People say I don't say names, but I'm saying it because he lives in Denver, Colorado now. He owns the first house on the right side as you go under the highway. And when he was selling his house, he was approached by a developer. And he loves his house. When I used to go pick up his books, I had to sit there and have coffee and look at the New Haven skyline. And he said, there's no way I'll ever sell my house to a developer. It's going to stay the way it is. But there was a developer. And if Joe Marcucci, a dear friend of mine, had said, how much are you going to give me? And sold it, we'd have a twin on the right side. A twin prison on the right side. So, look, we can talk about who said what. It's a mess. This is a mess. This what they're projecting on the left side, they're talking about seriously about the Bishop's Pond being
Matt,
breached.
again, we're POCD.
POCD.
Thank you.
They're talking about that pond. Last night they said, and I've heard the same thing from some very, very well-known people, that if that thing ever gets breached and we ended up with water coming down that hill, that's a guaranteed lawsuit. So I'll leave it at that. The whole concept of this building, somebody's in favor of it, and it's not a good thing for the town. So thank you.
Thank you.
You don't have to.
Okay.
Right, as long as you speak it clearly into the microphone, you don't have to write it. I also know where you live too.
Thank you. Tonight I'll start actually with introducing myself, which is Rob Rosasco, and I live on Westward Road. And thank you for having this hearing so that we can exchange some notes and some comments collaboratively. So we are here for the Plan of Conservation and Development, and I'll refer to it as the POCD, which I know everyone here knows, but I'm sure folks don't. And when I think about planning documents like this, I think about, well, who is affected, who's impacted by these, and also significantly, who's responsible for what. And are these people confident in what the document says? And fortunately enough, we're here to discuss the level of confidence. I'm here to share a couple of remarks on kind of all those three attributes. Who's affected, who's responsible for what, and what are people saying in addition to myself in terms of the level of confidence. So first and foremost, who's responsible? And this is a key question, and it was actually also anecdotally brought up last night at this hearing that was just mentioned, in terms of who is who. Oftentimes you'll have what's called a RACI, responsible, accountable, consulted, informed. It could very well be that this document is inappropriate to have that. I don't know really where the best place to have it is, whether it's already in the town charter, specific boards and commissions ordinances, or if there's, a strategic agenda or an appendix that this might live in. But certainly understanding, especially as a person of the public, well, we've got this plan for 10 years, it's supposed to govern us, well, who's going to do what? And do I get a say in that? So,
To that end, yes, there is an appendix, index, whatever you want to call it. There's an implementation, excuse me, there's an implementation table that is part of the document. It was just sent to the board today.
okay.
And it does give the information along the lines of what you're saying. It was something that was not included in our draft that we received, obviously, or that was on the public, but it will be on there. And I think that'll certainly help in terms of understanding exactly the question that you're asking now.
Wonderful. Thank you
You're
for
welcome.
clarifying. So going back to, public comments and things of that nature, one of the questions that was, popped up in my head last night as I'm at the zoning hearing is, there was public comment also by an esteemed individual of the community who said, for the sake of the record, this is the purview of the TPZ, which is to review applications. You don't get to pick who's going to make an application for anything. And it was also mentioned that this is a private piece of property. But as we all know, the TPZ governs private and public lands, as do other commissions and boards in this community. So what can we do to make sure under this plan of conservation and development that somebody is responsible or will help along the fact that all of the property, whether publicly owned or privately owned, is going to, suit the needs of the community? And one of the things that I know was just referenced with somebody in the community is this notion that conservation is underserved. I would encourage us as a community whose foundational values include raising children with educational excellence in a place where there's lots of nature, a beautiful place to live, that those elements certainly be carried forward in the conservation aspect of this. So going back to who is responsible for what, you just actually mentioned, Mr. First Selectman, the idea of promoting the business district. And that certainly is something that is top of mind for me as well. I wonder how we can make sure that things like that are carried forward thoughtfully. Much of the community, as I know everyone else heard last night, in addition to other comments, really do want to further and promote the business district, the business community more generally, and then also, of course, promote housing diversity and affordability. So how do you do that? How do you do it well, which is what I heard last night? People want it done right. And we've had guest speakers at the state level come in and talk to us about doing it slowly, methodically, making sure it fits the character. The aesthetics, that was a word that was used last night, of the community. And certainly when I came in and gave public comment a couple months ago, I referenced a project up in Kent, Connecticut, the Stewart Farmhouse, something that is a really neat building, 100% affordable. And I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if we had these examples that are so close to us in Connecticut in that document, so at least residents could get an understanding of what it is the target is. Because as we've heard, the target isn't a 5-story apartment building. So I have another example for us. It's actually just in Orange, Connecticut. It's this community called Lascana, and it's 46 units as I understand it. And according to Mary Wieland, our state representative, it's 100% affordable. Also a great thing because it's 2.5 stories. It looks like oversized colonial buildings. I think they're detached, 6 to 8 of them. It's a really nice property, and if it really is 100% affordable, what a wonderful thing to bring to the community. And that would be certainly something I would be interested in putting in front of other residents. Do you like this? Because I think it's pretty attractive.
Actually,
Yeah.
it is 100% affordable.
It is.
I've been for quite some time. It's right off of Racebrook
right.
Road, just before you reach Route 1. I've recommended that people go out there and take a look at this because this is what's possible. The full affordability of it is due heavily to subsidies from the state, so that's not always necessarily the possible.
Yeah.
But certainly, if you go out there, I completely and totally agree with you. I wish more people would go out there and see what it can be, because it's certainly something that's very possible and feasible
Yeah.
from our town perspective and it meets everything what you were just saying. So yes, it is fully affordable.
Perfect. Well, then that brings me to kind of the last detail, which I thought made this even more of an excellent example for our town, is how did we get it to that location that you mentioned? And I heard that actually the Board of Selectmen, someone along those lines, and an economic development director were responsible for talking to the private landowners that were interested in this transaction, and also the association or the woman who drove the transaction to completion. And the chief concern of the town, of course, was the fact that if you were going to do this on the post road, as you just mentioned, it's not, that could be difficult for school children, getting on and off the bus, playing on a very busy state road. And so there was a suggestion that there was another private piece of land that could be purchased, and that came from the town, even though it was a privately held piece of land. So my question is, who is going to be here to do that? We don't have an economic development director. Certainly it would be helpful if we had somebody that was shepherding those types of transactions along. And I think if that was the case, we might have a different audience behind us, different audience at the meeting last night, amongst others. So my final remark is, my understanding is this document lives with the town plan and zoning. As you mentioned, we get to share our comments there. Tonight is a night where I'm going to run off to my daughter's Beecher orientation. So it's not always easy for people to get to these hearings, and I would trust that this group of leaders would be able to package this all up and make sure that it gets to town plan and zoning and is understood. So thank you very much.
Thanks for your comments.
Do I get the printed copy?
Oh, you do, because it's got a pretty picture.
Yes, wonderful.
So Amy Morella, 184 Rimmon Road. I did give my remarks in writing to Allison, so you will have them in the record. I'm here to offer both a general critique of the draft plan of conservation and development, or POCD, and also a couple of specific suggestions. Generally, the draft is a failure because it focuses too much on constructing more housing and fails to recognize the importance and value of preserving and protecting our natural resources. As others have said, it is a POD, not a POCD. This flaw is a direct result of the POCD's reliance on a flawed affordable housing plan. Ever since the affordable housing plan was adopted in an unnecessarily rushed fashion in 2022, I and others have pointed out the problems with both the adoption process and with the substance of the affordable housing plan. Most recently, in January 2025, I came before this board and offered comments warning that the POCD would be flawed if the Housing Committee failed to fix its flawed affordable housing plan. It gives me no satisfaction to see that I predicted the future accurately. Also, generally, the draft is a failure because it fails to recognize the results of the TPZ's own survey in the summer of 2024. Again, I raised this concern in January of 2025. The POCD process began with a townwide survey in July 2024. That survey should have been the basis for developing the POCD. Notably, the survey shows that residents give top ranking to, quote, open space at 72.2%, and then schools at 70.4% when asked what is special about life in Woodbridge. When listing priority focus areas for Woodbridge over the next 10 years, residents ranked schools number 1 at 8.45, economic development number 2 at 8.42, and open space at 6.44 as the third of the top 3 choices of 11 options. Now that's for the future, not the past. Well, not just what they like, but what they want to, what should be focus areas for the next 10 years, which is a focus of the POCD, purportedly. Affordable housing ranked 8th, and housing stock ranked 10th. So clearly, residents going forward value open space more highly than the development of more housing in town, whether or not that housing is legally affordable. Unfortunately, the draft POCD ignores these survey results and instead relies heavily on the flawed affordable housing plan. As an example, it devotes nearly a full page to the housing plan's priorities. You can see it at page 20. But it never incorporates the graphs and charts from the 2024 survey results. Similarly, it fails to provide a map of the town's water supply watershed and fails to explain the state green plan and the town's vital role in helping to meet the green plan's goals. So while the entire document is flawed because of its skewed viewpoint and failure to rely on TPZ's own survey results, I figured you better have some clear suggestions for corrections. So here are a few obvious corrections that the Board of Selectmen could and should recommend. First, the full text of the survey results summary in its entirety should be incorporated into the POCD near the beginning of the document instead of where it is now, which is buried in Appendix B. It's got like a couple of sentences referring to it, and then off in the appendix it goes. Second, the town's role as public water supply watershed should be described, and a full-page map of the town showing the watershed area should be included, just as there is a map of the public sewer and water lines as they currently exist, for example. And there are multiple other maps, so why the watershed one isn't there, I do not know. Third, the state green plan, the town open space plan, and the more recent state focus on climate change in their own planning document should be described in a separate section. Right now, there's nothing. Once all of those corrections are made to the first half of the POCD, I think it then becomes obvious that the vision, themes, and goals need to be modified. That would be my hope, that after those changes are made, that's the difference in the orientation that then should direct some changes in the prospective recommendations. I'd also give two less significant but detailed suggestions. So there's a description of TPZ meetings on page 5, which should expressly acknowledge that there is no opportunity for public comment at TPZ meetings, even if they are, as described, open, quote unquote, because the description of the meeting as open could be misunderstood to suggest that there actually is an opportunity for public input. And second, there's a misleading survey characterization on page 48. It's in a balloon, and that mischaracterization, that balloon should be dropped. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Go ahead. I'm sitting down.
Hello, Ben Carlson, 89 Center Road. I just want to start by thanking you all for your service as usual. So I don't have a well-crafted statement this time around. I'm just here to just give the board just a heads up on a document that the Conservation Commission is planning to send to you. So one of the main responsibilities of the Conservation Commission is to advise the Board of Selectmen, as I understand it. So we are currently working on a document that recommends that you should reject the POCD in its current form and provide several specific suggested changes. So we're still working on the document. There's going to be a lot more detail. But the main issue, now that we've seen the final product, I think a lot of us I think probably all of us were new to this process. We didn't really understand, what was going to come out of it. But now that we've seen it, we realize that we should probably make some changes. And one of those is that TPZ and conservation did not work closely enough at all. So just as a kind of a high-level example, the housing section has recommendations, things like high-density housing in areas with, wherever there's water and sewer infrastructure. But these goals are clearly in conflict with goals that are in the conservation section, when areas with water and sewer are in ecologically sensitive areas. And so I think there's a lot of areas where these conflicts occur, and we could fix these if we had a chance to actually work together. And I think it's going to end up to be a much stronger document if we can do that. And I'd like to stress that, having, the ability to provide simple text updates to TPZ is not what we're thinking of here. Is we need to actually have a series of collaborative meetings with TPZ where we're both in the room and we're both able to talk and we're both able to review updates and talk to the consultant at the same time. We also are going to add some additional recommendations. So there's a lot of detailed ones. I mean, one of the big ones that we'd like to add is that to sort of give our perspective to the future, our future selves in 10 years. It's going to be somebody else, but we really need to have this process be not solely owned by TPZ, but it needs to be a I don't know what it is, a coalition or something of at least TPZ and conservation, since it's the plan of conservation and development, and maybe some other groups. But we really need to kind of think harder about that process in the next 10 years. The other thing that's become really clear is that TPZ and conservation need to collaborate on some sort of map where we can actually see where could we build with the least environmental impact. Because right now TPZ is not considering things like regional connectivity or adjacent properties or anything. They're really just looking at the site level. And this is the opposite of what you need to do with conservation. You need to have the landscape view of conservation. And so we're planning on putting a lot of more detailed corrections. A lot of these things that I mentioned, even if you don't reject it, they could be adopted into the plan. And so we understand that you guys have to make your decision soon, so we're going to try to get that document to you as soon as possible. But I do think that you should carefully consider taking a little more time to make this document better. It's going to guide the town for the next 10 years, and so I don't think that taking a few extra months to really get it right is going to, I think it's going to be very good overall. And so with that, I will thank you for your time.
Ben, just before you leave, it wasn't a complete document. It's one of the things that I'm myself, as a result of receiving the document, the draft that we received, it wasn't complete. So there is more to the document than there was. And we just received part of it, which I think was very, very important, very, very telling today. So just in terms of your comments, I certainly understand where you're coming from and what you're saying, but it wasn't a complete document and there's more to it. So I think it's contingent upon all of us. And I'm looking forward to looking at it a little more detailed to understand and see what the impact is of what's been added.
Okay.
It's part of the issue. There are some concerns with the process, but nonetheless, I just want to clarify that.
So can I ask a question, just
Sure.
because we're discussing a little bit here? I'm not sure if it's possible to get more time, but I would be very interested in getting more time to both have conservation and other input, as well as the Board of Selectmen's input. It seems like we might be rushing it to get it in the next week to TPZ and then expect them to turn it around immediately. I have no idea, we don't have our attorney with us tonight, but if we can somehow re-up the one that has now expired and give ourselves a sizable amount of time so that we can take this input. So I don't know if we
I can answer
explored.
that we cannot. Yes, we
Okay.
already explored to see if that option was available. What we can do is extend it for the amount of time that we're extending it, and we don't have a valid POCD in place. The risk there is just in regards to grants and things that we may want to apply for. We don't have a
Right. So then I guess
Valid.
my only other comment would be, we need to strip this down to the most basic document that the state will accept and file it, and then work on changes to
And
it.
that's certainly something that we can do, and that's something that actually we should be doing throughout the year. That's why we have conservation and housing and COOPOP and those divisions, is for the course of the year to define very specifically what we can be doing that we want to do here now, in conjunction with the POCD.
Well, that's
The
kind of what
nature-
our
the-
strategic plan was meant to be. And
Correct.
it's
And
not
that's-
really reflected in this document, so that's a disappointment.
Regrettably, the piece that was missing, as I said, the implementation table is very similar to our strategic plan.
It
Just
is
by the
regrettable
nature of-
we didn't have
I
that.
agree.
Well,
Totally agree.
but I didn't
have
see it as
So-
similar. So our strategic
I
plan
haven't seen
actually
it yet.
began with the last POCD's implementation plan, and we spent a lot of time going through it to see where we were. We made some determinations, things that we were not going to do. For example, they're back in this now because the consultant seems to have taken the 2015 POCD implementation plan without our strategic plan. So there's a lot of work. I looked at it very briefly because we got it about half an hour ago, or or a half an hour before the meeting. I think there's a lot that has to change in that, and there are a lot of implications for the Board of Selectmen, so I know we're off topic now. That's my public comment, I guess.
Well, no,
Sorry.
that's why we want to offer, make sure it's public comments, so we want to make sure people know. So along those lines, just by the nature of what it is, it's plan of conservation and development. Conservation and development in and of itself kind of collide. They're not going to always be consistent. So because there's one thing that says, we want to conserve and we want to do whatever we want to do from a conservation standpoint, doesn't preclude us from also considering what we need to do from your example, from a development standpoint. Your example is actually, in my mind, a very good one and one that we should consider more. And that's like you said, well, we say we can do it anywhere where we have sewer and water, but there may be a place where there's sewer and water where it's just not appropriate. Well, that's up to us. That's exactly why it's there. But what needs to be there is, if there is sewer and water and it is a good place, you want to be able to build it, you want to be able to go for grants and doing what you want. If it is not a good place, you want to be able to say, no, this is not a good place because it's inconsistent with some of the things we're finding in our plan of conservation and development. So there will be conflict there. And I asked that question early on in the process because when you read it, you can see that there is. So again, I think what we need to do is look at the strategic plan. And I don't mean to get off topic, it's about the POCD, but I want to, in regard to your comments, yes, there's conflicts, but there's going to be conflicts as a result of the nature of what the document is. So, but thank you very much.
And I'll just make one
Please.
final short response to that is there are conflicts and there's bound to be, like you say, and that's why it's really important to have both conservation and TPZ in the room when we're trying to figure this stuff out.
And economic development.
And whoever
And-
else you think might need to be
Right.
in there, but what happens is if there's only one voice in the room, it becomes very lopsided to one side.
Understood.
And that's what we're seeing in this document.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
For clarity's sake, I believe under Robert's Rules of Order, we aren't supposed to respond. Can we respond to public comment?
You can have
'Cause
discussion with the resident, with the because it's a
Public
public
hearing.
hearing, back and forth.
Okay.
It's just the, board discussion
Okay.
on your feedback.
We're not,
cannot be
yeah.
had. So yes, you can interact, yes, with the,
Okay.
just
Thank you for
So
clarifying.
is that what we're going to do? Are we all going to interact with the public, or,
You're welcome to. That's it. I don't have.
Okay, I've been,
but not with
Trying
each
not
other?
to, but-
That's so we direct our
Right,
questions.
exactly.
You guys are providing evidence.
Okay,
Good evening.
Martha German, 1170 Johnson Road. The inaccuracy and the inequity of this POCD draft are glaring, in large part because it is based on skewed information. Here is just one example. The, quote, facts and figures presented from the open house on the former Country Club of Woodbridge do not accurately represent the data gathered. I'm sure many of you remember the colored dots we were invited to stick on images of what we would like to see on the property. Choices included walking trails, condos, pool, affordable housing, brewery, tennis courts, natural wooded area, AKA open space, hotel, sports field, retail, duplexes, restaurant, etc. It seemed straightforward and easy to cast a vote with a little dot, and yet something went wrong. One housing image received many, many dots, but fell far short of the dot total on the open space image. Yet in the consultant's summary graphs and charts, housing and recreation are listed nearly even with open space. How could that be? It's so simple and slick. Dots were totaled from all the categories of housing, so if a person put dots on 3 different types of housing, he had 3 votes. The same totaling of dots was done for all the types of recreation. On the other hand, open space stood alone with 1 dot per person, without even the dots for trails added to the sum. Whether this was sleight of hand with the intent to skew the results or simple stupidity, the end is the same, totally wrong conclusions. This sort of guidance is comparable to putting a foundation on quicksand. And now we are presented with a POCD draft that goes even further in nearly eliminating open space altogether. A document based on inaccurate information deserves to fail. Before this draft is approved, it must be corrected. Let's stop this untruthful nonsense right now and base the future of our town on a clear and honest POCD document. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I agree, Sheila, with what you were saying about stripping the things down and really getting to the basic details and clarity. And also with what Ben said about including a lot more of conservation in it.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak, please?
My name is Joyce Simpson. I live at 5 Oak Hill Lane. I went online, I read that POCD document from beginning to end.
God bless you.
And it wasn't easy, 119 pages. In addition to all the things that have been said already, which I agree with, there was no conservation in there. There was some really outstanding errors. And the background information, there was errors regarding the Amity and Woodbridge Historical Society and the Darling House, who owned it, who ran it, etc. So that needs to be looked at. You cannot build upon something that's erroneous. So that was totally wrong. The name of the First Church of Christ was inaccurate, which is the center of our town and has been there for quite a while, a couple of 100 years. That needed to be corrected. As far as I could see, and I looked hard, I wanted to see where the farms in this town are. And I don't believe they are shown on a map anywhere. And when I thought about how many farms there are, I think I came up with about 9 in my head. There may be more, and there might be 1 or 2 less. But certainly they should be the pride of our community and should be displayed on this plan. And they were not. I really am thinking hard about development and housing. I plan to attend tomorrow's meeting. And my suggestions when I go to that meeting tomorrow will be, oh, it's canceled.
Meeting tomorrow.
There's a housing, it's not,
Housing and conservation.
Their joint meeting was canceled, conservation did have to cancel their meeting.
but housing is happening.
Their regular meeting is
That's where I'm
happening.
going.
Okay,
Yes,
That's
to
where I'm
clarify,
going.
Yes.
And coming from England, where there are, conservation is big in England because of a lot of history. Instead of building like one big giant block of anything, there's really an effort to seek out smaller lots with all the resources that you would like for affordable and non-affordable housing. Everything's handy dandy. The bank's there, the food shop, the bus line and everything. And I think that the housing committee in this town could do a far better job looking at that, looking at ADUs, providing help for people like me who have a too big house to put an ADU in my house and have a little medical student live there or a police officer or something. I really do think we could catch up on this lack of affordable housing in town by doing something much more creative than building that ugly thing that we've all been looking at. So that's the other thing. I did write comments after I read the report. There was a place to put comments. Do they make it to the people who are looking at revising the document?
This is for the POCD, the draft, there was an email link, right? that you
Yes.
sent that- Yes, so those go to the email address that
Okay.
was received by our TPZ and the consultant.
Okay,
Yes, there's a
that's good.
specific
Just want to be
designated email
reassured that I
address. Yep.
didn't write to fresh air.
Yes.
And
Just a quick question then, so the Board of Selectmen will get a copy of those? Because if Joyce is giving us comments,
yeah, I
we'd
wondered
like a
where
copy
it
too.
went. Did it go into
Yeah.
cyberspace or
No, they
does
go
it go
to-
to someone who's making decisions?
It goes to the consultant and and ultimately to the TPC.
So if we can, I would like to also get them because
Okay.
we'll make a decision at our next meeting.
Yeah, I did it thoughtfully after I'd read it.
I'd like to hear them.
And
Yeah.
2 final comments. I would like to see a revised draft of the POCD distributed to the public. because I want to see the changes that I'm suggesting in that document. I don't want it to keep rolling along full of errors. You know, send us a new draft, let's have a look at it. And the last thing is just a blatant comment I have, that we should not ever, in this town, give up 1 square inch of open space for housing or for any other development. The people who gave property for open space, donated it, did it in good faith that it would remain the green space that it was when it was donated. And the town purchased property with the sole purpose of keeping it open. The places we own were bought with that in mind. They were not bought, but with taxpayer money to be further to be developed at some later point. So that's all I have to say.
Selectman is about to unmute. I think they're gonna give me a warning so that a voice just doesn't come from this guy. But I think Maria.
Oh, I'm glad she's here.
Joyce, were you?
Thank you, Allison. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Great, thank you. I just thank you for your comments, and I actually wanted to touch on that because part of my feedback was that this draft of the POCD, in contrast to the 2015 POCD, removed the stipulation that your ADU had to be for a family member on your property. And hearing these comments, I'm concerned that we need further clarification on this, because it seems that there is also an interpretation that we are to put ADUs on our property to become landlords. And I think that is a separate issue that needs to be discussed thoroughly, because I certainly don't want to end up in the situation that Orange is, where there's short-term rentals in town and problems that arise because of that. So I think we need further clarification, and we need to find out why that family member stipulation was removed in the 2025 draft as compared to the 2015 draft. Thank you.
Maria, we can, okay.
So I think that was to conform with state law on ADUs.
Okay.
It was
Well, it
when
was-
they did the ADU
And I would
law.
really encourage this town,
Our ordinance changed it too.
if we're looking for affordable housing
Regulations, yeah.
opportunities, over the
Regulations.
garage, in a big house, wherever, there should be some incentives in this town. Tax incentives
We're working on it,
for
Joyce.
old people like me.
Right.
We're working on it.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I would say one of the things to
Joyce.
keep in mind is the current rules, as I understand them, you cannot build over the top of your garage. You're supposed to have living quarters that are even with the floor.
Go to Greenwich, they're all.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, no,
but that's specific to our town.
Carriage houses and
Their regulations.
go.
And Joyce, just if I might ask you one question. You were talking about town property, open space that was specifically designated for open space. Were you referring to anything in particular? Because
Well, I think-
correct me.
When we bought the Fitzgerald, when Fitzgerald was,
I don't know.
I'm thinking of the old Selectmen, that when we bought the country club.
Oh.
That was designated to prevent housing development, was it not?
No, that wasn't.
Oh, you would know it, me too.
That was not.
I think it was,
There was,
So, just to be clear, what Joyce is referring to is that there was a letter from Ed Sheehy to all the residents at the time that said that we can buy this and protect it as open space.
Yes.
It was, and to that end, and it was, we've had the discussion, I think, in a number of different scenarios, just to make sure it's clear. The minutes, the video, the meeting, there is significant documentation that indicates the property was purchased to control what development goes on the property. It was not the only letter that Amy is referring to was a campaign letter, and it's the only piece of material. And the people who were there at the time, who we've also talked to, specifically, very specifically, indicate that at the time it was presented as a desire to purchase a property so that we can control what development goes on it. So was it, or to clarify, it was not, so it was not specifically purchased to remain open
I mean, it
space.
was right before an election too, so it was an important letter, and I read it,
No, I understand, but it's,
And, places like Fitzgerald, open for all takers, right? I mean,
So Joyce,
Be careful here.
Joyce,
Absolutely,
maybe
Joyce. I agree.
31 Enoch is maybe a better example. So 31 Enoch did have some open space stipulations involved in it, and there has been consideration of changing that going forward, because apparently we're able to if we want to, but what you're saying is if it has been bought with open space considerations, it should be held in open space. Is that your point?
I know so many people, having lived here so long, that donated pieces of
Right.
property as they died.
Yeah.
They donated it, they did not donate it to put a four-story building on it. I can swear to God that they did it. They
Right.
donated it to make a pathway to connect
Yeah.
this park to this park. And that's the whole, it's Woodbridge. It's what
Right.
Woodbridge is all about. You can go out and take a nice walk. You can go from one place to another on your own 2 feet. And to lose that would be to lose the essence of this town, in my opinion.
thank you, Joyce.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to make public comment or public hearing?
Hello. I appreciate, I don't know if this is working, but I appreciate you guys extending the public hearing, but I did want to just point out that the Joy Prudhomme, Barbary Lane, I just want to point out that the timing of this public hearing and the previous one is obviously not super convenient for people who were on summer vacations and are getting their kids ready for school, and now we're back to school. So, while I appreciate the gesture, I think that, it does fall short. And the POCD being a recent conservation commissioner, the process was one of the reasons why I left. It was extremely frustrating. And I think that is a very important thing to note. I realize how it works, that TPZ really owns this document, but the process for conservation and other folks to, weigh in and have, their work reflected in this document, it just didn't happen. It absolutely didn't happen. And so that's a huge miss. The other thing that really concerns me, obviously, is that this document reads so differently from the 2015, right? Drastically different. And with all the other changes that are happening, I mean, this place was crawling with consultants this past year. Crawling, okay? So a lot of outsiders giving us a lot of information, a lot of connection to SCROG. SCROG, there's an agenda for the state. We know there's a problem with housing. We know there's a problem with the fact that this is a very old state and we have really old infrastructure and the place is, quite frankly, falling apart, okay? But that doesn't mean that we need to rip up our remaining green space during a time of terrible environmental crisis. That we have a responsibility to do this in a way that is balanced, and I don't see any balance reflected in this draft at all. So I believe Steve Munno mentioned in the previous hearing, I was on vacation, so I had to watch it while we were away, but I thought he pointed out, that this is kind of an incomplete plan, I think is how he put it, okay? And I realized that you just got the implementation and, having worked on this and, understanding how this works, is kind of like the teams of, for those at home that don't know what this is, it's to kind of assign to different boards and commissions that would be working in concert or all together to get that piece done. That's fine. But going back to the fact that there's so much housing baked into this plan, just parking the conservation and the lack of conservation aside, we don't even have a housing plan, to my knowledge, that is ready, that is actually something that we can use, okay? That's a huge problem. It's like, building a house and you don't start with a foundation. I mean, it's just nonsense. So without the housing plan, where is the housing plan? And before we have a POCD for the next 10 years that is talking about high-density housing and all kinds of housing, where is that foundational document that we can, see, understand, and make sure that our foundation is solid as we move forward and build that future?
The Housing Committee did just recently resubmit a revised housing plan based on work that they've been doing over the last number of months.
Where is it?
To who was that
It hasn't,
submitted?
just to me, just to me.
Okay.
Just to you?
So,
Okay,
correct.
well, that's not
Finished it.
helpful for
Yes,
this
I'm sorry.
process.
You
I'm
say it's
sorry.
not finished yet?
It's not.
I haven't,
We haven't
I
seen it
haven't
yet,
met
right?
with them. No, we have not.
So the rest of the Board of Selectmen has not seen it, okay? Has TPZ seen it? I
No,
mean,
it's
who's
just,
seen it?
it's just been submitted, and
I received a copy of it to be submitted to the Board of Selectmen and put on an agenda at one of your meetings.
correct.
At
That's
which
generally the
C,
time.
And then over the last 3 weeks,
I haven't discussed it,
There
I
hasn't
haven't
been a
mentioned it, I haven't done anything with it.
So-
Just because you mentioned it, I wanted
Well,
you to know.
It's
So,
a big deal, okay? So the POCD that doesn't have conservation in it, but it is all about development and housing specifically, and not having seen the housing plan, it feels like this is way out of order, okay? We've paid money to consultants, and this is like, I'm sorry, it's a mess, okay? I'm embarrassed. We can do better, and we should do better. The people deserve better. Okay, I'm not talking about the people that are gonna move here to this wonderful housing that we will someday have, but the people that live here now, that are paying the bills now, deserve better. So I think you need to press the pause button, say this is not ready. I'm horrified that I watched the TPZ meeting and the consultant said, "Bravo! You did an excellent job, straight A's across the board." Scrog thinks it's wonderful. They never give anybody a straight A, wonderful.
I'm sorry,
Oh.
who did that, when?
So the TPZ met with the consultant just recently, watched the meeting, okay? And the consultant sat there, did not really get into the details of the meeting you all had with the consultant, where Steve says very clearly, this is kind of an incomplete plan. None of that's being
I missed
reflected.
the Bravo part.
But Scrog also had their comments. Their comments were, you did a perfect plan, okay? I find that highly suspicious, okay? And so I am just like, we're gonna get ourselves in deep trouble here, okay? I think you need to press the pause button. We need to go back to the drawing board with this plan. Sorry, screw the grants for now, okay? Take 6 months and get a good plan. My best advice to you, because this plan is not good. And we have a responsibility, and we should go back to Scrog and say, we are one of the only green spaces, open spaces, farmland soils left in that region of governments, okay? And we should be doing what we can to find that balance. We'll get our housing, but we also need to make sure that we have something for the future to grow our food, to help these watersheds, to help erosion, to help against climate change, all of it. It's not just about people, it's about the creatures too. The pollinators go away, we have no more food, and it's game over. So I think we just need to do better.
Steve went on there.
Sorry.
No, he was just texting to make sure I can announce him. He wants to.
So that's all I have to say, but I implore you to just pump the brakes and get this right, because it is the 10-year. I know a lot of people say, oh, we just do it, we put it on the shelf, it collects dust, and nobody looks at it. That's not true. I just spent a year of my life working on this with my team. And it was such a frustrating process, and we were not being heard, that I just quit the whole thing, okay? So, enough. I'm sorry I'm getting emotional about it, but, we're volunteers. We love this town. We care about this town. You know that. We can do better. Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah. So, thank you, Joy, for your comments, and everyone else who's made comments throughout this meeting tonight. I do want
address that and echo what you said, Joy, there with the issue of the document not being substantially complete, which is the term that is sort of used for this document, in that the TPZ is meant to turn it over to us at the Board of Selectmen when the draft is substantially complete. And it simply is not. And while I appreciate that we received the implementation table today, asking us to start a review period in 65 days without the implementation table, without proper maps, simply isn't appropriate. So I expressed that at the last meeting, and certainly we're hearing that from folks today. And it doesn't put us in a great position. I appreciate everyone coming out to make their comments, and I hope that we are able to take more comments. I know one of the things that came up is that we can't extend this 65-day period. I don't have a great solution for that, but I'd like to think that because TPZ won't meet on September 11th, that we might have some more time to provide feedback or receive feedback from the public as they provide a more complete document, as more tables and maps come in, so that we can all look at this and provide appropriate feedback with a more substantially complete document than what was given to us to begin with.
Thank you, Steve.
I'd like to agree with Steve. I don't see why we should have started a 55-day thing when we didn't have half the document. It was just a bunch of holes, and it was and part of the writing was frankly just horrible and redundant. It definitely needed editing.
You're addressing this to Joy, right, David?
I'm replying back to Steve, who was the last speaker.
So, thank you.
And
I know, but he's part of the board, so.
We're
it's
not allowed
Joy
to.
left, so I
So
No, she's here.
there she is.
Amy.
Hi, Joy.
just making sure.
It just, yeah, I mean, we find ourselves in a very tight window.
It is something that we can discuss next week, I
don't like us to be up against, we put these meetings out there in a very tight window because we were in a tight window, because we received a document that was half written, and they called it a document. And that's not a document. And it wasn't a very good document.
Understood.
So-
But anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sheila.
I'll also reflect on what Joy said to us, just to say, you watched the meeting, so you know that at our last meeting, we did ask the consultant, if we were to reject it, what does that do? Does that start a clock over again? If substantial changes are going to come of this process, and I'm very hopeful they do, because I think a lot of changes are needed in this document, and I think we're hearing this from the public, Joy among the people saying this to us. What is the process forward? Because it does seem to me, a previous person also said that we should have that draft again, so that people don't have to read through the old draft, but they should see the newer draft. So it seems to me that we should be pushing hard to have the public's input heard, have the Conservation Commission's input heard, the EDC Commission's input heard, the Housing Committee. If they've got new ideas to share with the Board of Selectmen, we need to vet them through on the Board of Selectmen level, and then get our comments back to the TPZ so that it can be incorporated. I don't want to see this approved without those steps being taken. So if it means extending this in some fashion, perhaps, as we've heard mentioned, if it wasn't substantially complete, we need to hang our hat on that. We need to speak with legal counsel about what we can and cannot do, because I think in the end, we do need a better document, and I'm hopeful we'll have that.
We will talk to public, to our town council about that. But we'll get back to the public hearing at this point in time and see if there's anyone else who would like to comment. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for continuing this hearing. Barbara Hagen-Smith, 116 Northrop Road, Woodbridge, Connecticut. I have nothing written here, and I really wanted just to say that I, both from the standpoint of being on the Conservation Commission and from the private citizen sense, I want to concur with everything that I've been hearing. The people say that there are problems with this document, and I actually came ready to say this, but everybody said it before. I wanted to point out that there are things, particularly in the Historic and Cultural Resources section, that are completely untrue. They say the Darling House, which that is not its name, located on Litchfield Turnpike, is a 1770s colonial cape residence. Since 1973, the Darling House has been owned and managed by the Amity and Woodbridge Historical Society. Did you know that you all did not own it, or the town did not own it?
Did pick that up.
It was in the 2015, the same thing. It has simply been picked up out of there and dropped into the new one, which I think many of the statements, the same thing has happened. They've just grabbed them and put them in, did not do any research, did not check the facts, et cetera, et cetera. And in addition, just because I'm sitting here, they list other historical structures, the Castle Russell House, the Chatfield Farmstead. They are indeed historic structures, but they're certainly not the ones that are known around town, and there's certainly lots more than exist in this document. So why pick out the 2 or 3 that they have picked out? Other than that, as I say, I concur completely with Joy and the other people who have said that there needs to be a tremendous amount of work. I don't even think of it as a plan. It doesn't seem like a plan to me at all. It's just a bunch of, this is what you have, and this is many different things that you could do if you want to go this way or this way or this way or this way, and it doesn't put forth any idea of how we should go. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Would anyone else like to make public comment? Anyone else for public comment? No one else for public comment?
So
See.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue this public hearing to our September 10th meeting so that additional people might have a chance to comment, especially after they get to see the implementation section, which none of you have seen yet, and we've barely seen. So I'd like to make the motion that we continue the public hearing. Well, I think we can.
We have another public hearing scheduled that
We do.
night.
As well as the POCD discussion and the CCW discussion and the Housing Commission discussion and the,
Yeah, it's a big
and there's
meeting.
another
We have the
charter.
housing, we have the
charter
public
revision.
hearing for the housing ordinance at 6 o'clock, followed by your regular scheduled public comment. You do have the presentation of the final documentation for the Country Club of Woodbridge Master Plan.
If we're able to find out and see if we can do something in regards to, I'm sorry, this is discussion, so do we have a second on her motion?
Yeah, we got
I'll second so we can discuss, yeah.
So if we have, if we're able to extend this in some way, or I would say that's feasible, but in the interest of getting through the business that we have to get through.
Well, I would love to
I-
have it at a different date, but I think that we have this obligation, unless we don't have the obligation. So maybe it's legal counsel has to.
I think it's
talk
something
to
we
us.
can certainly look into to determine whether we can or not, and if we can then call another public hearing if we so desire.
Well,
But,
Or could we know, because it has to be
You
submitted
cannot,
to
there's not enough
TPC?
It's supposed to be, no, that's if we do it on the 10th. I'm saying if we do,
So-
if we extend it beyond
I
that.
see.
So
If
let's-
we're able to extend it beyond that, but I don't know that we can. That's
Okay.
the
That's the
issue.
legal counsel.
So I would
Correct.
like to keep it open and schedule it for the 10th. My understanding, when we talked about this last time, about continuing a public hearing and whether legal notice had to be printed, I went back to listen to what our attorney said, and the sum total of his advice was, and then he got cut off, and he didn't finish the sentence. So my understanding today is that when you're continuing a public hearing, you do not need to put legal notice. That's what happened with last night's public hearing. There was no legal notice that it was continued, because once you have noticed it once, you've fulfilled that
That's-
obligation.
that.
Now, I'm not an attorney, so I will not say that's legal advice. My understanding as a layperson, after hearing last night's explanation from Rob Clay, the public hearing that was held last night by TPZ had originally been noticed for the original opening of that public hearing, which was back in June. It was in the newspaper. The reason it was able to go on last night is it didn't need, as a continuation, to be noticed in the newspaper again. My assumption is, if that's the case there, it's the case here as well. I know we did put a legal notice in to continue tonight, but I'm not sure we need to. So again, I think we need legal counsel on this, but my motion to continue the public
to the
hearing.
town council, because I have to file all of these things. So just to clarify, we do not need a newspaper for a continuation. I did put it in because the Board of Selectmen ordinance, we follow our charter for public hearings for the Board of Selectmen. TPZ has to follow state statutes, which is, there's another set of rules for TPZ public hearings. So because our charter does not say anything about continuations, because I don't think that long ago they, were concerned about continuing meetings, it doesn't say, so I put it in the paper to err on the side of caution. However, all public hearings, including the continuation for last night's TPZ, are put in our public hearing folder at this point on the town website. That's how people got notice of last night's TPZ as well. And the new application that does require newspaper posting didn't make it in the paper in time. So the Board of Selectmen, we are from the charter, which doesn't say, so we took it upon ourselves to put it in the paper as well.
So again, I think.
Can I offer a thought on this, Sheila?
Sure, Steve.
If you don't mind. I think a potential compromise here or thing that could be helpful is that we will have public comment at our meeting and we will be discussing the POCD. And so it would be, I think, relevant for people who come to our meeting who want to comment on the POCD to offer that as part of public comment.
Good
And
point.
that would give us the opportunity to close the public hearing today, but people could still give us that feedback. It would come ahead of our POCD discussion. And we would be able to be, cognizant of those remarks as we make our recommendation. But understand that we have quite a bit on our agenda. I think, inviting people to make their comments regarding the POCD during public comment might be a decent compromise on this. And if we are able to make some determination of extending or allowing ourselves some more time, given when the next TPZ meeting date will be, we can factor that in at that time. But that's what I'd like to offer for this discussion.
So, thank you for offering that, Steve. To my mind, that makes it a bit more confusing than if we just held a public hearing. Because if we didn't need a public hearing and could have just received input from the public just in public comment, why did we go to the trouble of having now 2 public hearings with 2 newspaper notices at a cost, et cetera? I think that we should not combine both public hearing and public comment, although that would be an elegant way to get out of the question of how long our September 10th meeting is going to run. I would, as my motion says, I would like to continue this public hearing for the 10th. It may be very brief. Even tonight was not that long, and we could certainly limit people to a 2-minute comment or ask them to also give us written comment. My concern here is that I think we need to hear from the public, especially about the piece of this document that we just received, and I would like to make sure that they get to see that and give us thoughts on that as well.
Excuse me.
Jordan
Sorry,
can't
but
print it.
how is the public getting it?
I think it should be emailed.
It's on the website. It'll be on the website.
And where's this housing document? Does the public get to see that?
At some point, yes, Joy. Yes, absolutely. After we've had an opportunity to see it and review it and talk to the Housing Commission about it, yes, the public will absolutely get to see it.
It's likely FOIable now.
Just so I understand the process, because to my understanding, and the reason why we had this second public hearing before the 10th, our next regularly scheduled BOS meeting, was because that was our time.
Correct.
So should we continue this hearing on the 10th, we would, in that same night, consider it, integrate it into our feedback, and submit it that that night, that,
And
Probably the next
The night
day,
might
so
go
the
very
next
long.
business.
yeah.
The night will
Okay,
go very
I'm
long.
just thinking it through procedurally, if it logistically gave us enough time to really process, think, and
Yeah, well, I agree.
integrate.
I
I'm-
don't-
And I'm,
I don't
and
think
I'm
we're
trying
gonna
to,
have
and I'm
time.
trying to understand the value in it, because certainly the public has the opportunity to input directly to the TPZ on their comments. You had also brought up the point, well, why don't we get those comments? So if we did that and they have that opportunity, they have that opportunity, there's no reason for us to extend it. There's public comment that's available at that point in time. We specifically didn't do public comment on the 10th. We didn't schedule it for the 10th, public hearing, excuse me. We specifically didn't schedule the public hearing on the 10th because it would not give us the opportunity to hear from the public and then integrate, as you just mentioned. That was a very specifically thought out reason that we went with August, knowing that it was going to be a vacation month, but we said at least we'll get some input and some concern.
Yep.
We then said we'd extend it to September 3rd to give more people additional opportunity to talk.
And I
I
think
don't
that
think
was,
we were really appreciative, at least I wasn't, maybe everybody else was, of how much wasn't in this document that should be. That we are going to get, I haven't looked at it yet, but we have today, and we've got to go through that to decide whether to, what suggestions to make, or whether to accept or reject the POCD as it stands. And, I think that's part of this, is that we didn't have a document that was was complete, or was complete enough to even call it something that was submitted to us, in my opinion.
yeah. I'll just say that I think our plan was very sound when we made it, and now we have more information, including this new document that was shared with us today. If it's intended to be part of the plan, I think people should be able to see it, digest it. I haven't had time to digest it, and the people in the public haven't even seen it,
But
so I
they
would like
can,
that.
and they can make comment on it either directly to the TPZ. They can submit comments to us via email, or they can come to public comment and provide us comments at that point in time as well. So there's multiple opportunities for the public to provide us exactly what you're saying they want us to. I'm looking at the practical aspect of extending the meeting to a third time, and I'm trying to understand the practical aspect of what benefit that delivers, knowing full well that the public has all the opportunity that I just mentioned to provide us that input that we can then use and consider.
Right,
So
so with
it's-
Steve's suggestion that we just use public comment at that meeting, I think what I'm hearing everyone say is that we would allow people to speak to the contents of the public hearing at the meeting. We're going to allocate time. I think we should, I feel strongly that we should call that a continued public hearing. We're not talking about whether we're going to spend time on it or not, because we have public comment, and if people come here to talk, we're going to let them talk for whatever amount of time we're going to extend that. So my point here is that we should call that a continued public hearing, because I don't think we should mix public hearing, public comment as if they're the same thing.
We're not doing that. Go on, I'm
So
sorry.
that would sub out public comment? So
No.
people couldn't comment on, let's say, the country club?
No, we'd have
or-
a point in the agenda where we'd say, is there anyone here to speak at the continued public hearing about the POCD?
Sheila, how would it feel to you if, and I don't even know if
I
this.
mean, limited to 15 minutes.
I'm throwing something out there, could
Yeah.
be totally bogus, but what would it be like if we extended the hearing for written submissions to maybe, let's say, the 8th or something, so that we actually have time to read them in advance of the meeting and consider them, and then integrate, understanding you want to keep hearing and comments separate, but then if people aren't able to write within this short
Yeah,
notice.
I mean, if that's,
I just
legal
want to
to
make sure we
do,
have
and I
the
don't know
ability
if it
to actually process and integrate. And having sat through, however, 18, 19, 5-6 hour meetings, 20 at this point, it's hard to have the brain power by 9 or 10 o'clock at night to really integrate this stuff. And so I want to honor the intent of the hearing. You know what so I'm not disagreeing with the concept. I just want to make sure the intent is realized and how can we do it in a way.
I have no idea if you can keep a public hearing open to electronic
Yeah, I don't.
communication only.
Okay.
So I would be more comfortable just keeping the hearing
Yeah, if I
open.
could chime in. Andrea, I fully agree with the sentiment there, and I think the way that would function, rather than making the public hearing be open to electronic or written submission, people who are submitting public comment already do so written, in a written fashion. So we could receive written comments from the public as part of public comment, and that could be handed in tomorrow. People obviously need time to read this and provide that, but for those who are particularly engaged, who have showed up at this hearing and previous hearings, to say, there's some issues and we'd like to see more info. I'm sure they'll be reading it over the next few days, and I would love to have their comments and feedback. If they're able to get it to us by the 8th, that's great, because then we can read that document. But, Sheila, I think there's a little bit of semantics here. I totally understand where you're coming from on wanting to get more feedback. My take on this is, that public comment is generally open to anything on the agenda. POCD discussion is on the agenda, and we should be getting public comment in a written form if people can provide it. I think it would be great to encourage that for those who can and want to do so in a really detailed fashion. So I'm with you on we need more feedback, but I think we can do it within our public comment.
Well, the advantage to having the hearing, it's a difference without a distinction. I mean, the advantage of having continuing the public hearing is you get the same people who would come to do public comment, but instead of mixing those POCD things in with 15 other things, you hear all the POCD at once. So if we have public comment at the next hearing, there's nothing to stop anybody from talking about the POCD during that. But if we have, as Sheila suggests, a continuation of the public hearing, those same people would be all put together at one time. We would hear all that in toto for 15 minutes or whatever it is, and then we could close that public hearing, and we wouldn't have to deal with it I think it takes the same amount of time is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, David. I think that's a good point. It can help organize our meeting.
To that end, we could limit the hearing to a specific amount of time. We
Yeah.
can say 30 minutes,
And that
and we
was-
can go from there. I think we got an email today. Did we get an email today about asking us about extension as well?
Yes, for
Okay.
an extension for tonight's hearing, yes.
Okay. And I know that there was something
member
at
of
the
the
school
public?
somebody mentioned. Yes.
Asked for an
Well,
extension?
the
The
conservation
conservation.
panel, the co-chairs, for the reasons Ben came, for the reason,
Because they didn't have their,
the points that
Okay.
Ben would make, but yes.
I'm
this is-
fine. I'm
it was
fine with
towards-
it.
was
all right,
Well, the
support
one
of-
contingent I would put on that is that we're going to limit the
time.
POCD hearing to 30 minutes.
Sure.
Okay.
That'd be fine. I agree with that.
And if it's less, that's great. But if we can't go beyond that, so we'll be, so the public understands, we'll be adhering to the time limits in regards to any comments that are made.
Maybe that would encourage people to, if they had a lot to say and figure they can't get it in, they
Send
could
us
it
some
in a written
material.
form.
Exactly.
We ought to encourage that anyway. That would help everybody.
So,
Did you hear that, public?
any, Steve, Maria, any additional comments?
Yeah.
No, I agree with that plan, thank you.
Okay. All right. Hearing no
That sounds
additional,
great.
hearing no additional comments, the motion on the floor, to be specific, say we will continue this public hearing for September 10th, and we will limit the time for the public hearing to 30 minutes. All in favor? Steve?
Aye.
Thank you. Maria, thank you very much. Motion
Aye.
carries.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn?
That's it, David.
Second.
Thank you very
Ding,
much.
ding, ding.
Done.
All right.